Hey there, folks. Thanks for joining me. There's a question that I get asked all the time, and I've been asked it multiple times for many years. What are your favorite albums? What albums influenced you the most? And it sounds like a pretty straightforward question, but it's a hard one to answer. So I'm going to attempt to give you 10 albums that were a huge impact on me in my music career, and in no specific order because I love all of these for different reasons. But here we go. I'm going to give it a shot. If I've left one out or if there's one that you think should be there, let me know. But these were the most impactful to me as a drummer, as a producer, as a songwriter, and just even a music fan. So here are my top 10 in no specific order. Let me know your thoughts. So the first album I want to mention is the 1993 Rush release, Counterparts. Counterparts is one of the first albums that Rush had done in a long time, where they got back to just heavy guitars, just killer bass lines, and just rock music. They got away from the synth world again, from the whole 80s synth thing, and they just released this just full out in your face rock album. Starts off with this great song called Animate. The drums are super crisp. It's one of those songs that just hits you in the face. Every track on that album is solid. Rush is obviously, for all the reasons you would already know, is one of my favorite bands of all time. Neil Peart is just a drumming Yoda. He's just a legend, one of my favorite drummers of all time. He's definitely in my top 10. And I think there's so many great songs. There's a song called Between Sun and Moon, and the drums on that, the tom fills, everything is just so spot on. So if you get a chance, check out the 1993 Rush album, Counterparts. The next album on my list is the 1989 Tears for Fears release, Seeds of Love. Seeds of Love is a really diverse album, and a lot of people, when they think of Tears for Fears, they think of like their hit songs from the 80s, like Shout and Everybody Wants to Rule the World, and those are great songs. Seeds of Love came out and it had a myriad of great musicians on it. That album has Phil Collins on drums, Manu Katché on drums, Simon Phillips on drums. So from a drummer standpoint, you can't really get much better than that. Also, Pino Palladino plays bass. Oleta Adams sings backup vocals and takes some lead spots. Each song is pretty phenomenal on that album as well. Two songs in particular that always hit me. Woman in Chains is this incredible song. There are some YouTube links talking about how Roland wrote this song and what he wrote it about. Great song, and Oleta Adams singing is amazing. Phil Collins drums on it, and Phil has that identifiable Phil Collins sound. So when you get a chance to listen to that song, Woman in Chains, it's amazing. One of my favorite drumming songs of all time is on this album also. It's called Bad Man's Song. Bad Man's Song features Manu Katché on drums, and Manu has this just unreal feel. It took me months to learn this pattern on drums. It's a hard one. Then I realized later there's a shaker and a hi-hat going on in that song in the intro, so I didn't feel so bad, but I learned the part and it worked out well. But if you get a chance, listen to Seeds of Love by Tears for Fears. It's stellar. The next album on my list is the 1991 release Guaranteed by Level 42. Level 42 is a band born out of Britain, and they had some huge hits in the early 80s, mid 80s. They started out really as like a funk band. They did like funk pop kind of music, very like Tower of Power kind of movements with just a really cool funk line. Mark King, arguably one of the best bass players ever. Funky slap bassing, but just some really busy playing, even being the lead singer. He's great. The original lineup with Mike Lindup on keyboards and vocals, Mark King played bass and vocals. Phil Gould was on the original album. He is a drummer as well. He's the original, one of the founding members, and his brother Boone Gould on guitar. And so Level 42 is one of my all-time favorite bands, but their Guaranteed album that came out had a slightly different lineup. So their Guaranteed album on drums, being a drummer, I was a big fan of Gary Husband. Gary Husband drummed on that album. Guaranteed has some really cool songs. It's very personal to me. My dad really loved that album. I have some great memories of me and my whole family, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad, being in the car driving to Long Beach Island from Philadelphia to New Jersey. And we would listen to that album on repeat all the time driving to the shore. No matter what we were doing, my dad loved that album so much. And one of the cool things about that album, there's a guest artist on some of those songs. And that guest artist was Alan Holdsworth, played lead guitar on a couple of those tracks. And some of those songs, there's a song called Kinder Eye that has this signature Holdsworth sound that is just emotional. It's like, oh my gosh, like you are blown away by the virtuosity this guy had. Definitely a great track, very emotional track. Just it's well produced. There's another song called My Father's Shoes, and again, losing my dad a few years ago, I can't relate to the text of the song per se, but just having a loved one who's passing. It really deeply impacts you. Then that song, My Father's Shoes, goes back to him recounting how his father, he was a poor man, but he had a wealth of friends, and he did everything right. He was a hard worker, and it makes you really harken back to your own family and your loved ones. So Guaranteed is just a special place in my heart. Great musicality on that album by every musician. If you get a chance, listen to Level 42's 1991 release, Guaranteed.